pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we're here. All right, I don't believe there are any names on the form, so we will proceed to approving the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Bruce,
Second.
seconded by Dave. Any questions, discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved. You had an opportunity to study the consent items. I will entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Moved by Gary,
Second.
seconded by, which one, Davy?
Yep.
Okay, Davy. I thought maybe Bruce did. Any questions about any of those or comments, clarifications? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent items, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Reports. Superintendent Wagner.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, directors, student representatives. Great to see you, teacher representative, and community. We want to begin this evening focused on our mission to ensure individual academic, social, emotional growth that leads to engaged citizens and lifelong learners. And you'll see that in the second portion of the report tonight. But what I do want to reinforce was a statement on behalf of Albert Lee Schools that we had sent out. Like many of us, we continue to be deeply shocked and saddened by the news and images we're seeing coming out of Israel and the Gaza Strip. These images, while troubling to all of us, can be particularly difficult for our children and teens to process. It is also important to note that some of our students may have family members, friends directly impacted with the ongoing conflict. Our focus will continue to be on ensuring our schools remain safe, inclusive, and welcoming environments for our students. We ask that we get all support for one another and understand that bullying or discrimination will not be tolerated. Furthermore, we want you to know that staff are always available to students who may need a little extra support or help dealing with these difficult events. If you believe your child or as an adult you may be struggling, please reach out and there are supports. We hope for a peaceful resolution to the conflict in the near future. We in Albert Lee care about the well-being of all children and will keep the children, families, and caregivers in our thoughts. Thank you. The next piece is, it was just great going back to thinking about the social emotional well-being of our students and experiential learning as lifelong learners. The Albert Lee students and community is very fortunate to have two amazing, deeply rooted events in our community. Our students were able to experience the Discover History at the History Museum. As a new superintendent last year, I was just amazed to see the dedication, the amount of time, and just how this long history has continued to sustain the support for our students. So that continues to be a highlight. And then the rendezvous. We had our Southwest Middle School was able to experience. As cabinet members, we walked over as well to experience the rendezvous. And I know that we have, from the Education Foundation, great support for our students as well. So just two very enlightening and experiential opportunities for students, and we're very fortunate that our students have that experience. So thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Wagner. Let's start with
You start with me.
Kim, since you recently arrived.
I drew this short straw. Okay, I get that. Well, I really don't have a lot to report, but I did attend the Education Foundation banquet, or reception, and thank you to the school district for being there. And it was just a great way to celebrate some awesome alumni and amazing educators that were in the district. So I was excited to be there, and it was a great evening. I was not at the Business Ed Committee meeting last month, so I think Gary has that. And tomorrow I get to go to, I'm going to attend the Groovy Get-Together at Hawthorne, so looking forward to that.
All right, I had two committee meetings. One was on policy, which I enjoy almost as much as Gary. And that was just a heads up on the policies that are on the agenda tonight. And then I also attended our curriculum committee meeting, and we went over the Deep Space Sparkle art program, which is being offered from kindergarten through 7th grade. I Googled that later, and I learned that the name Deep Space Sparkle is named after a Crayola crayon color. So I thought that was interesting. And most of the meeting was focused on data from the world's best workforce. So I was told we will get that information presented to us in November sometime. So that's all I have.
Very good. Committees were finance and business ed. We focused really on just the emerging economic workforce opportunities in Freeborn County. I mean, if a person's paying much attention, there are opportunities, and we're grateful for the housing that's cropping up. So just kind of explored that. We're a bit uncertain too about the community or the countywide scholarship with the new state financial aid program that provides a gap payment for tuition, how that all works out. Also, policy committee, I still have goosebumps about that meeting, that policy committee. Registered for phase 3 and 4 training. I start the first part of phase 4 this Friday. And then on a personal side, I was a mentor with some retired teachers and worked with Jim Haney on Discover History. So we were working together, not on the same team, but got to see her a little bit. And then I had an experience with community ed, and my lovely bride and I did a trip to Stillwater and had a lot of fun, but it was well organized, good communication from community ed on that whole eventful day. So I appreciate that.
A couple opportunities to speak at our schools here the last few weeks. I got to speak at the Pathways group of the 8th graders, and that's always fun. They're exploring many different options in life, and maybe we seem to hit them a little bit early, but the earlier you plan, the better you do. So it's always fun. There's a lot of good questions. You just never know what you're going to get asked, and I think as a teacher, you realize that that's kind of the way it is with students, and I had fun there. Mr. Jensen's auto class, I also spoke in there, which I traditionally do a couple times a year, and talking insurance, but really kind of get a little bit into everything else. And of course, I like to always bring up the cell phone policy. How's it going, guys? And have a nice little frank discussion on that. But it's fun to meet with the kids. Also had an opportunity to sit down with Mr. Kruger over at Lakeview and had some nice visit with him. Got a chance to look around some of the changes at the school, especially in our little security area. And I think we've done a lot of good things there. It's like everything else. There's phase 2 and 3, but I do think they've done a nice job over there. And then today, I had an opportunity to be up in Bloomington with the MSBA, thus the apparel I'm wearing. They told me I need to wear it if they're going to give it to me. But it was interesting to sit back and more discuss some of the things that we have going on in our district aren't a whole lot different from anywhere else. Of course, we're talking finance, we're talking SROs and things like that, which Kim and Angie, who are on the delegate assembly, that'll be part of it too. So I'm looking forward to those discussions and seeing how our support goes. Also, again, talked about the pre-delegate assembly, which will have a Zoom meeting on that, and I'll talk to you gals sometime. And then the December 1st and 2nd, we will actually get together and vote on the different resolutions that come from different districts around the state to garner the support of MSBA at the state level. We've got a couple of ladies that are our lobbyists, and they kind of spearhead everything we do, and so they spearhead the delegate assembly too. So looking forward to that. I think there's 15 or 16 different proposals that we'll look at. And then, just as a reminder, and you probably got something not too long ago, we've got what is it, the 11th and the 12th is our conference up in the Twin Cities for MSBA. Phases 1 and 2 would be on the Wednesday night before would be phase 1. Phase 2 will be on that next Thursday. And then from there, we'll have the meetings from there. So I look forward to doing that. I will be with the group, but also have some other responsibilities. So that's it. Thanks.
All right, so I did attend a couple of committee meetings. So one of them was the policy meetings. The first time I got to experience that. And it was very informative. Going through some of that later today too. And the other one was the Teacher of the Year Committee. Nice discussion there. Got to meet some people talking about some possibilities, some changes maybe coming up this year with venue and stuff like that. I also, it's been a while since I did a report, but I got to help out at the Hawthorne Welcome Picnic. They asked me to bring my music equipment and play music for the kids and do a few games with them, and so that was a lot of fun. And then I'll be attending the Groovy Get Together too, so that's it.
I attended 2 Freeborn County Collaborative meetings. The first meeting was filled up with reviewing candidates for the coordinator position. As of last Friday, we offered the position to one individual, but as of last Friday, that individual has not accepted it. The second meeting with them, we had a request from Alden Conyer, Glenville, Emmons 5th grade classes to go to a retreat with a focus on kindness and anti-bullying. So we approved a $3,500 to send them for that. And then I attended the toy committee meeting with Davey, and more information will be coming later. Attended a community impact event in Riverland.
Sounds like it's the place to be. I obviously attended the Pathways to Success reception, and I concur. It was. I'm always nervous about how that's going to turn out, and it has turned out very well ever since I've been involved, and I have very little to do with that. Board members like Kim and Brad Kirschner and several others helped out a lot in that. And the Pathways to Success is, I think it's a very important recognition, not only of the people that are honored, but also of the mission, what Pathways to Success has to do with an educational system. That's what we're here for, to provide a pathway to success for our students and our teachers. Those distinguished educators are those who are responsible or who get the pleasure of providing whatever they can to shed a little light, lit the way to those pathways. And I was impressed with Superintendent Wagner's comments because Pathways to Success sounds like a pretty simple journey until you stumble into what success means. And among other things, success means providing our students the wisdom to be able to function in a world that's as mixed up as our world is today. And boy, that's a challenge. And I think it should be an integral part of what we do and it's part of our mission statement to make our students, to provide them with an opportunity to become lifelong learners and citizens. And part of citizenship is making this a better world, and that's probably about as successful a journey as you can that you can have. We did also at our last Education Foundation meeting agree that we would meet at Hammer Field every even month, second Wednesday, 5 o'clock. And so that will be our meeting place from now on. Okay, yes, teacher report. Now, our student reporters, Jay Lee and Ashley, correct? Thank you. Ashlyn.
So, hi everybody. My name's Jaylee. I'm Ashlyn. And I figured I'd share some of the stuff I'm involved with, just so you guys get to know me a little bit better.
Oh, you
We'll go
need
get
to,
your microphone.
yeah.
So, some of the stuff I'm involved in at the high school, I'm the president of the student council and president of National Honor Society. I also am on the superintendent's cabinet with Mr. Wagner, and I am a link crew leader. And out of school, I'm Minnesota's representative for the Youth Leadership Council, and I am a board member at the Historical Society, and I am a confirmation teacher. And on top of that, I have 2 jobs. I work with community ed, and I work at B&B Cafe.
I'm Ashlyn Bourbon. I'm a senior at the high school with Jaylee. I'm on the golf team, and I work at Jostens and Otana. I work remotely during the school year. They're the people that make the class rings and Super Bowl rings. I'm also on the student cabinet, and I thought that would be fun to learn more about how the school works and the decisions.
So that's just a little bit about us. What's going on at the high school right now? We're wrapping up the quarter. We had a successful homecoming week despite the nasty weather, but we're working on rescheduling some of the events that did happen to get canceled. After we get back from our break, we have our fall festival scheduled for next week. We did that last year outside, but we're moving it to the inside because it was a little too cold, so we're hoping to have some more kids come. And furthering on, we have our food drive that will be taking place in November, hopefully around Thanksgiving time, so we can get some food out for families during Thanksgiving. And then in December, National Honor Society wants to host a toy drive for Christmas for the kids. So those are some of the events we have coming up at the high school. Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you. We look forward to your presence at once a month at our regular board meetings. That will be the second one of the month. So thank you very much for being a part of this. Next on the agenda, effective and efficient operations, school board evaluation. We talked about this at our last meeting, at our workshop, and if you checked your agenda for today, we have 2 options that were presented as possibilities, and I have them in front of me. First option is to receive a 1-page summary that will provide an overview report for each of the 5 school board standards upon which the questions are based, and those standards were attached. It's a 2-page document, which I will not go over, but there are a number of standards there: conduct and ethics, vision, structure, accountability, advocacy, and communication. This 1-page report is available at no cost to our association members. Please note that it does not include any guided discussion or goal identifying with MSBA staff. So with that option, we would be provided with an opportunity to return some data, to create some data, and but we would have very little or no guidance from the MSBA. Second option will provide the board with a more comprehensive report, 27 pages in length. The full report is only available at a board superintendent team in service, which would be facilitated by MSBA. The in-service will last anywhere between 2 to 3 hours, longer if needed, and allows the board to see the disaggregated data for each one of the 70 questions of the evaluation, part of the district's goals as outlined in your strategic plan. This option also includes a written summary of the in-service, which can be used as the team continues their own discussion to identify board superintendent team goals. This option would incur a cost of a little over $1,000, well, close to 1,100. The first option doesn't cost anything. So, any thoughts on these?
I was wondering if there are, Dave, I think you said we've done it before, or Kim. Is there enough data in that summary report that would be useful to us?
That's what we, that's what we used last time.
Okay.
It doesn't dive as deep as it can, but probably with the makeup of the board, that probably gives us, in my opinion, I like to raise revenue for them, but
Mhm.
I think the first option is a good option to work with, in my
Okay.
opinion.
I guess I'd have the same question for Ron. I don't know if you have experience working with the tool and the products.
My question, Ron, is which one of these options would fit more into our, the structure of our strategic plan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And Director Schindler, those are great questions. So as I want the board to really reflect on, data should push us to ask more questions, and it talks about the alignment to the strategic plan. But at this time, as we're in the developing stages and almost completion to be able to present to the board a strategic plan, I think the first option would give a baseline. And then as we start developing our goals, how does the baseline triangulate with some of the strategic goals? And then moving on the other side, go deeper into the alignment of the board evaluation to the strategic plan goals. So that would give a deeper understanding of that alignment. So the first one would give a baseline, maybe some reflective questions, not necessarily answers. And then as we move in and get the strategic plan defined, then we can go deeper, either with MSBA or with another affiliation.
Works for me. I think Kim and I kind of advocated for doing it, so.
Yeah, I think that the first option will also maybe bring things to the front if there's areas that we maybe need additional training or additional information on as well, which will support the potential of having to align, or not having to, but will align with the strategic plan moving forward.
And as we worked with many of the constituents as well as the staff and as students that daily desired experience, how do we bring in some of that data to inform that as well? So I think that would be it. When we start to unpack as cabinet, the board can look at the strategic plan and that data, and then to say, okay, how do I then, in terms of policy development, work through the strategic plan to ensure that these goals move forward based on this baseline data?
Makes sense.
So how does the first option look? It's vaguely described here, but what is the process? What is the procedure? When, how, what are the details? At what time, what's the schedule? But it would be imminent, and it wouldn't be, it'd be a week or so. All right. Have we reached a point where we can move on this? Do I hear a motion for one of the other options? Kim?
I'll move to do the first option of the summary from
Okay.
MSBA.
Thank you, Kim. Do I hear a second? All right, it has been moved and seconded that we pursue the first option relative to a school board evaluation. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I'll look forward to that, as I'm sure we all will. All right. Number 9, engineering professional service proposal. We've received information on this in our packet. Mr. Durbin.
Good evening, Chair, Board, Superintendent Wagner. So this evening, we've got a proposal from ISG Inc., Engineering Services. we have identified 4 mechanical systems that are near the end of their life cycle. We believe it's time to replace these items. There is 2 boilers from 1957 and 2 from 1961, a pool dehumidification unit, and a pool boiler. The boilers at Southwest Middle School are original to that building, and the boilers at Lakeview Elementary are original from that building. And we've gotten by, as a credit to this district and our former facilities directors, to this date, with those units, we're finding it very challenging now to repair and maintain these units at this time. So as an example, last year one of the burners on one of the boilers went down, and they had to manufacture the part because they do not make or sell those any longer. So the lead time on obtaining those is quite a while, and it puts us at a high risk if those go down over the winter months. So in the short term, we can probably survive and get by, but we need a plan to replace these items. So we're asking to approve a proposal this evening to provide the design and development, the engineering services, and construction administration for those 4 pieces of equipment, or those 4 units. The project funding would be via deferred maintenance bonds, which is bonds against our long-term facility maintenance funds. Essentially, projected income that we would receive for LTFM funds, we would loan against those for the 15-year span, and it would have no impact to our levy for that process. And it would still allow us enough LTFM funds to function as normal, or as close to normal as possible through that span. So the next steps, pending approval this evening, would be ISG Inc. Would present a project overview, summary, estimated cost for the project at our November 20th meeting. But approval is needed this time for them to dig into that scope or that portion of the project. Yes, in the proposal, the cost is outlined as a percentage for the design and engineering services is 8% of the total construction cost. There's 2 other pieces that we asked them to layer in, and they put an estimated cost, but they're not sure at this point because they don't know the time and materials needed. There is, above the boiler units at Southwest Middle School, the concrete foundation and the roof structure, it's a flat concrete structure, is leaking horribly when we have rainstorms there. So a lot of moisture gets into that mechanical area and our electrical rooms down in that maintenance area. And so that's part of the project. We've asked them to provide an evaluation and include that in the design as needed. And so that would be an estimated $3,000 cost for that assessment. And then the other part would be the construction administration. We prefer to have a project manager on site as needed for this project. And that's basically as needed. We would ask ISG to bring the engineers or the project manager down to assess the project as it's moving forward. One concern we have is a compressed timeline. To remove, replace, and install all of this, it has to be done in a short window of time, roughly 7 months, and that's pushing it in some cases with this large scale of mechanical unit like at Southwest Middle School. So those would be the 3 components, would be the evaluation of the structure at Southwest Middle School, the design and engineering services, which is a percentage based on the bids, and the construction administration portion as well. Yep.
What about the other 3 projects? Are they gonna design that too?
Yes. Yep.
Is there like rebates or anything available? when they look?
Absolutely, yep. So one big discussion we've had is with Minnesota Energy for high efficiency boilers. When we add those in, depending on the size and number of boilers you put in, there will be rebate potential. Now, part of the engineering scope or the project design that ISG will provide is a cost analysis on whether the rates that we will receive for certain types of boilers and systems will be worth it, and maybe a scope of time, how long it would be before they pay for themselves, those sort of analysis that would come with it. But the newer technology, the old technology isn't really exist anymore. We can't just go out and get two very large units that are gonna run at this. They'll stack modular condensing boilers together, so you might end up with 8 units in the basement of Southwest Middle School. It's gonna provide high efficiency because they could run one or just small portions of each of those boilers. But each of those units that comes in may come with a rebate. So as the design is built and engineered, we'll know more about what the rebates would look like.
Do you have any idea, I know boilers aren't super efficient. When you talk high efficiency, do you have any idea? ISG said anything when the boilers fall now?
On the label, 95, 97% efficiency is what they sell them as. Now, my understanding is our old boilers, the steam boilers we have are maybe 70, 75% at best. They're not very efficient. So regardless with these replacements, we'll be seeing improvement in our efficiency.
Paul, if there's need for repair or work on the ceiling floor issue in the Southwest, is that incorporated into long-term facility funds and still no impact on levy if we have to do replacement of that?
It can be looped into this project, yes. So we'll see what that assessment comes back as. There may be other options, building a roof over that current space, or if they want to re-pour the foundation. We really need to assess where the moisture is getting in and what the cause of it is before we can take guesses. But it is something we'd be able to loop in with the LTFM or the deferred maintenance bonds, yes.
My other question, maybe Bruce can help with this too, but is Southwest zoned at all as far as the heating system? And if not, would this be able to allow for some zone heating?
I'm glad you asked that, yes. So it actually, the reason I'm glad you asked that is because Southwest Middle School boilers actually provide heating for Sibley Elementary as well. And so yes, the boilers will produce heat and it runs through glycol, pipes with glycol through them throughout the building. And then there will be different VAVs, they call them, that will distribute the heat to each zone or each classroom. So I'm sure our students at the high school are familiar. There's some areas that are much hotter than others. A little different there because it's a geothermal system, but we will have the controls and electronics to be able to be very efficient with that, yep.
Those boilers at Southwest are 66 years old. When the school was built, we needed 3 boilers, and then when they covered up the glass panels, then we got by with 2 boilers, so we could switch back and forth. That's what made the boilers last so long. So, I'm glad you're.
It's time. So yes, we're asking for your approval to work with ISG Inc. And their engineering services to help with this project, so.
So I just want to reinforce, Board, that I want to thank Jennifer and Paul for this. And we lead every one of our cabinet meetings with the great Maya Angelou quote of, do the best you can until you know better, then when you know better, do better. And this is, and Director Olson, you named it, at 66-plus years old. We can't rely on hope that those continue. If those go down, I mean, it essentially could shut down 2 buildings. I mean, there's so many unfortunate outcomes that could happen if we lose that. And we need to invest in beyond myself as superintendent or as directors. We need to think long-term. So what is that long-term plan and those efficiencies to really ensure that this outlasts us another 66 years? So thank you for your team for digging into this.
I'll move to approve this project.
Thank you, Kim. It's been moved that we approve the project. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Bruce, who is almost as old as the boilers. Well, not much we can do about that. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the proposal as stated. Any further questions?
I just had I'm just making the assumption, but I want to clarify. All of the project costs, so those, the engineering, administration, the design, the assessment, that's all included in the project costs?
In this proposal with ISG, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then also, this is just to clarify, this is what deferred maintenance bonds are supposed to be used for? So this is a good use of,
Actually, yes, we've had a positive conversation with Minnesota Department of Education today to confirm that this would be an acceptable use of those bonds. Yep.
Further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right. We have some policy issues or policies for review. Seems like we have a never-ending supply of them. Jennifer?
Thank you, Chairman Score, board members, Superintendent Wagner. I'm going to address the school meals policy and the crisis management policy. So starting with school meals, we currently have a procedure in place. Now we are required to bring that procedure into policy. And the procedure that we had really addresses almost everything that is in the policy. The primary changes between the procedure that we currently have in the policy is adding language into the policy regarding the free meals, free breakfast, and free lunches. It does ensure that the lunch shaming does not occur. This was something that was already in our procedure. It also talks about if we reach an identified student percentage above a certain percentage as identified by the federal government, that we are required to participate in the community eligibility provision. And in fact, we did decide as a district that we moved all of our schools to that community eligibility provision. And what this does is this helps the state of Minnesota be able to afford this program for our Minnesota students. It gives us the largest possible federal reimbursement, and then the state makes up that difference. So we did move forward. Some of our schools were required based on our percentage, but all of our schools were in the range that we could move to that program throughout the district. So we did make that decision. And this is the first, I believe, of 3 readings for this policy. Yeah, so the next one is the crisis management policy. Really, the only change here was to bring in language around school active shooter drills and simulations. It brought in some descriptions of what those things are. And if, as a district, we made the decision to move forward with either of these, a drill or a simulation, it describes the requirements that we would need to implement, such as the ability for students to opt out of a drill or simulation, prior notification to families, and time immediately after a drill or simulation for teachers to debrief with students. At this point in time, we do not have any plans for an active shooter drill or simulation. Those are the only 2 I'm addressing.
Raise the bar here on policies a little bit, but the next one is internet acceptable use and safety, and you've seen this policy multiple times this spring. The legislature this last round added that the board directs administration to add cell phone guidelines. And you have seen cell phone guidelines in the last multiple from different administrators and building leaders. It also expanded and identified social networks specifically that we as a district must protect student information from being posted. And then, as we've seen in many of these policies, there are general language adjustments. For instance, in this policy, not only spelling out Minnesota statute, et cetera, but they choose to use the word, move from staff to employees. It makes no legal difference as far as how we operate. There's some changes from using words incorporate, et cetera, but all fairly minor changes. So everything in this policy we already are implementing, and it is just another review and aligning it with statute. Questions? So I'm going to let Paul do student transportation because that is his area, but I will be back.
All right, back again. So, policy 709 is student transportation safety. The bulk of the changes with this policy are statute, and language in the policy is just updated to mirror that. So a few key highlights from the policy recommendation here. Students in grades K through 3 must complete training during the first 3 weeks of school if they were enrolled over the course of the first 2 weeks. And grades 7 through 10 would have until the end of the 6th week of school. Prior to this, all students had till the end of the 6th week. So it's putting that 3rd week of school as the, for grades K through 3. Students will receive the training twice during the school year. New enrollees in the district will have 4 weeks after enrollment date for us to provide the training to them as well. And that's something I think is nice to be added, is a lot of students we don't have anything for them prior to this. They added requirements for pedestrian and bicycle training in this policy. And then another portion here, we'd be providing rules to parents and families. And so as this is approved, we'll be rolling out that information to families as well. And it replaced a referral system with bus suspension consequences with an updated set of consequences. And the important piece there is it provides a 60-day restart, where if a student doesn't have any discipline issues for 60 days, they get a clean slate and will be able to ride the buses again. And then the last piece that it includes is some added duties or driver duties and type 3 transportation language that got pulled into this policy along with that mirrors that state statute. And that would be it. Any questions?
All right, once again, I think it's worthwhile to announce that we are already acting in accordance with these policies and that they are mandated by the state. So that's what we're voting to approve. All right. Well, let's have a motion to accept these, or moved by Gary and seconded by Angie. Now, any questions or comments?
For the students, you know, there was a new cell phone policy.
Whatever is best administered is best. So if we have a policy and it's enforced, probably it will work. Any other questions, comments? All right, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt these policy changes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.